Well, hello, my friend. It's me, Stu, here for you. And I am going to be talking about how to grow your audience fast, even if you're starting from scratch. Listen, there is a myth that you need to have a huge audience in order to grow a membership site. And I can tell you that that is just not true. You don't need tens of thousands or thousands of people in your audience. In fact, just a few hundred is all you need to be able to get started and to be able to start generating revenue for your business. That's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about, like, how do you begin growing your audience and how do you do it in a way that creates momentum for you, no matter what you want to offer, whether it's a physical product, whether it's a service, whether it's a digital product like a course, or whether it's a mastermind or a membership. Listen, at the end of the day, you don't need tens of thousands or thousands. Just a few hundred is all you need to be able to get started. And that's what we're going to be talking about. And so hello to everybody. Thank you for jumping on and joining me. This is really about getting over the hump of thinking that you have to have all these things in place before you get started with moving forward with your idea. And I want to point your attention to a number of different examples of this. You know, in the early days when I was, I got out of focus. Hang on. Shoop. Hang on. What's going on here? Okay, there we go. So in the early days, when I was beginning to share what I had learned after a decade of working with, entrepreneurs in all kinds of different markets, specifically helping them grow their memberships, I used to think that you needed at least an audience of, I'd say, 2,500. This is what I used to think. But so many tribers in our community have demonstrated that that's just not true. You don't need big audiences whatsoever of tens of thousands or thousands. Just a few hundred is all you need to be able to get started. Good example of that. A few years ago, we actually flew a film crew to go and film a story with a woman by the name of Anna Saucier. Sorry. And Anna's a great story because she attended our live event, Tribe Live. And during that event, she was inspired by hearing the story of Jamie Swanson. Now, Jamie Swanson at that event was talking about how she did a founding member launch. And you've probably heard me talk about this before, but it doesn't entail like getting all super whiz bang fancy with, sales pages and videos and webinars and all that kind of stuff. No. It's about like keeping it super simple and really gauging your audience's interest. And so Jamie was talking about that, and Anna was inspired. And so Anna said, you know what? Like, I've been thinking about this idea for a membership for far too long. Like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to put it into action. Now, she didn't have a big audience. She didn't have tens of thousands. She didn't have thousands. In fact, she had 326 people in her audience. Now, she helps infertility practitioners. At least she did at the time. And so she decided to go for it. And so she did her founding member launch to this teeny tiny audience, and she ended up welcoming 21 members. Now, she made a lifetime offer to these members and ended up generating over $5,000, which basically kickstarted the whole momentum for her, right? To be able to then create the membership and then be able to continue growing her audience. Another great example is Courtney Lynn. Now, Courtney Lynn is in a very unique and particular market because she helps pet influencers. I didn't even know this was a thing, but now it's like on my radar. In fact, we've been so inspired that just this past weekend, my family and I, we started an Instagram account for our own dog, which you can follow at Miss Doggy Doodle on Instagram. But anyway, so there's this whole industry of people who have created like social media accounts for their pets. And Courtney has done this very successfully. In fact, she had, built quite a large audience for hers. And she had a lot of people who were asking her, like, how do you do this? Now, she didn't have a huge audience, that was of people who were particularly asking for this. She had just over 900, I believe. And so she did a founding member launch, and these were 900 followers on Instagram that were specifically following her to get advice on how to grow their, pet Instagram accounts. So she didn't have a huge audience. She did her launch, ended up welcoming 52 founding members, which generated $1,800 up front and $700 a month right from the get-go. Not a huge audience, but certainly a huge win. I also think of Cheryl Kuchek, who did she hosted a virtual event for 230 people. And so again, we're not talking tens of thousands or thousands, but 230 people. From that, she made an offer for her membership and ended up welcoming 120 founding members. And here's the crazy part. 70+% of them opted for the annual plan, and the remaining 30% opted for the monthly plan at $47 a month. So just listen to that for a second. Like, of the 230 people that she made the offer to, again, not a massive audience, 120 of them said yes. And this is one of the major advantages that you have with the smaller audience, by the way, is that you will typically see much higher conversion rates with a smaller audience. And a big part of the reason is understanding the advantages that you have with a smaller audience. You have the advantages of being able to engage and interact with people in a much more personal way, which naturally increases the conversion rates and the response. And a final example that I want to share with you is with Faye Cornhill. So Faye's over in the UK, and she didn't have tens of thousands. She didn't have thousands. She didn't even have hundreds. She had 77 people in her audience, and she decided to do a founding member launch anyway. She ended up welcoming 10 founding members, but those founding members joined at a price of 500 euros each. So just do the math on that. She generated 5,000 euros from a teeny tiny audience of 77 people. So I'm sharing this with you, gang, because again, I want to dispel the myth that you do not need a big audience of tens of thousands or thousands. Just a few hundred is all you need to be able to get started. So the question then becomes, okay, Stu, got it. What do I need to do in order to begin building my audience? Now, I'm just going to get real practical with you here, okay? Because the bottom line is, in order to build an audience of just a few hundred people, there's only a few things that you've got to do, okay? A few things. First and foremost, my recommendation is to pick one platform that you are going to publish content on. One platform. So for me, when I was beginning our new business, which that we have built over the last 6 years now, we picked Facebook as our primary platform. So in the beginning, I wasn't on YouTube. In the beginning, I wasn't on Instagram. In the beginning, I wasn't on LinkedIn. In the beginning, I wasn't on Clubhouse. In the beginning, I wasn't doing any of those things. I just focused on one platform. For me, at the time, that was Facebook. So first and foremost, you got to pick one platform. Now, I don't know what that platform is going to be for you. It might be Facebook. It might be Instagram. It might be Clubhouse. It might be a podcast. It might be a YouTube channel. But you got to pick one. Because if you try to be on all the platforms simultaneously, what ends up happening is you get overwhelmed, you get burnt out, and you don't become consistent on building an audience in any one place. So first and foremost, you got to pick a primary platform. So again, I don't know what that's going to be for you, but I want to encourage you to just pick one, especially in the beginning. Just pick one platform in the beginning. Second tip that I want to give you is that you've got to create content for that platform, right? So in order to create content for that platform, one of the things that you have got to get clear on is like, what's the problem that you are looking to solve? Like, what are you specifically helping people with? You know, where are they now and where do they want to be? Perhaps they don't know how to draw, and you're going to be helping them become a great artist. Perhaps they don't know how to play the guitar, and you're going to be helping them learn their favorite songs. Where are they now, and where do they want to be? You've got to get clear on that. Because when you're creating content, what we're creating content to do is to help people bridge that gap, right? We're helping people make progress toward their ultimate goals, desire, etc. That's how we attract an audience, is we get known for solving a specific problem. So one of the things that I encourage people to do, and if you're ever stuck on like, well, how do I help people, and how do I get clear about my messaging so that it comes through in every single piece of content that I produce, you might want to go check out membershipidea.com. This is a new resource that we have put together. It's super low key, but what it does is it helps you get clear on like, what is your messaging going to be? How are you going to position that so that you can begin attracting and serving people? Again, you can find that at membershipidea.com. But bottom line is that you've got to start creating content. And I love creating content around specific problems that my market is facing. Because if I become known for the person who solves that problem, I become a trusted resource, right? The same is going to be true for you. So number one, pick a primary platform. Number two, we got to start creating content. And the best way to create content is around problems or challenges that your market is facing. Now, the third step, this is the one that most of us struggle with. And my hand is raised because this is an area that I have found challenging, and I will give you some of my own personal tips in regards to this as well. But the third step is that we've got to publish consistently. And man, consistency has been a challenge for me. Like, I'll give you a real world example. I have a podcast called the Marketing Your Business Podcast, and I love creating podcast content. For me, I love an audio format. I don't have to worry about getting my hair sorted out or anything of that nature, right? And it's very easy for me to be able to create content based on, our 5-part framework that I teach, which that could be another lesson for another day. But bottom line is that I love creating audio content. But here's the challenge that I have found. I am consistent during different seasons throughout the year, but I'm also inconsistent during different seasons of the year. And for the past 2 years, it has happened in the exact same way. Let me give you an example. As we build up towards our, flagship program called the Tribe Experience, and this happens every year. This year, it's happening on April 22nd. Mark down the date. Tell everybody you know. April 22nd. So I am uber consistent to that point. But what happens for me is like, I have like 2 modes. One mode is promotion mode, and that's where, we're building up toward the launch of our Tribe Experience. And then there's like a switch that just gets flipped. And then I go into delivery mode, and I'm all in for our students. And I show up every single day in our community, answering questions, being of service, and just helping people be able to implement, what it is that we're teaching. So as soon as I switch into delivery mode, what inevitably happens is my consistency with my podcast just drops off. So it's like the same thing has happened for the last couple of years where, the podcast is humming like thousands and thousands of downloads every episode. And then all of a sudden I go ghost. And it's just because my attention has switched elsewhere. So when I raise my hand and saying that I am in this boat of, being challenged with consistency, it's real. But let me share with you some of the things that have helped me over the years. And as we come toward the season where I typically fall off on the podcast, I'm going to share with you a couple tips that, I'm hoping will help me this year. So one and foremost is like batch creating content, right? And you may have heard this concept before, but I'm subscribed to this when it comes to memberships. And it's the same is true when it comes to creating content for your audience. And when we talk about batch creating content, we're talking about setting aside a period of time where you create a whole bunch of content all at once and then schedule it to be released down the road. And my tips around this are not only to schedule a date, but schedule it with somebody else who is going to show up with you during that time to create that content. So I do far better when I have somebody else, whether that's maybe Chiziana, who's our video producer, or Rick, who's our marketing director, or heck, even if it's just a friend or colleague or family member that's going to be there to help support you in making that day a day where you create a bunch of content. So, mapping out the content and brainstorming all kinds of ideas on, what kind of content you can create, that's the simple part. But like actually sitting down and creating it can be the challenge. So you got to schedule a day. And, when I was business partners with Michael Hyatt, one of the things that we had to do was we had to get creative in how we created content. This is specifically for his membership site because he was super busy. He, was a New York Times best-selling author, number one, okay? So he was in high demand as a speaker. So he was traveling 30 to 40 times a year speaking at different events. And you add a day on the front and a day on the back for travel. He was gone over 100 days a year. So he didn't have time to be creating content on a regular basis for the membership. So what we ended up doing was we ended up scheduling 6 days a year, 6. And we would do 3 2-day video sessions. That's the 6 days. And in that, we would create more than a year's worth of content. And we would do it because during those days, we were back to back to back to back to back, creating content that would then get scheduled inside the membership for months to come. And the same is true whether it's content inside of a membership, whether it's content for your audience. When you batch create, you create consistency. And so if you're, if a podcast is your primary platform, then schedule a day and batch produce a bunch of episodes, perhaps enough episodes for a month. And if you're doing a weekly podcast, that's probably going to be 4 episodes. If you're doing a podcast where you've got, maybe a couple episodes a week, then that's going to be, 8 episodes, so to speak. If you're doing a YouTube, channel, then you're going to batch produce that content. If you're doing, social media platform, then you're going to batch produce the content. But the whole point about it is getting ahead of it and scheduling it, because the magic of consistency comes in batch producing and scheduling. And I've just found for me that I work best when somebody else is showing up on that day with me. I am far more consistent when somebody else is holding me accountable. So who could that person be for you? That might be, like I said, a family member. It might be a friend or colleague. It might be perhaps somebody that you've met in this community. Whoever it is, just reach out and say, hey, listen, I need somebody to hold me accountable because on this day, I'm going to be batch producing content. Do you want to be accountability buddies? And we'll do it together and we'll show up and hold each other accountable. Just keep it consistent in that you've got a day on the calendar and it's a day to batch produce. Okay. So number 1, pick a primary platform. Number 2, you got to start creating content specifically around problems and challenges that your market face. Number 3, you got to publish that content on a consistent basis. And then number 4, and if you really want to grow your audience, this is important, you got to engage. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in your content, you want to potentially ask questions. And when people respond, you want to show up and serve. You want to interact and engage and thank people for the comments that they leave and interact with people, not only in the comments, but by inviting, direct messages and so forth. But you got to show up. One of the interesting parts about running a membership is that what I have found is memberships whereby the membership site owner, doesn't really care, is not really engaged. They really struggle to create community. And it's pretty obvious why, because if they don't show interest in their people, why would their people show interest in them. Same is true on the front end. If you don't show interest in your people, why would they show interest in you? So engaging is an important part, so that it spawns further discussion. It deepens the learning. It creates stories and engagement with your audience that keeps them coming back for more. So be intentional about engaging. Again, no matter what your platform is, whether that's Facebook, whether that's Instagram, whether that's a podcast, YouTube channel, whether that's Clubhouse, whatever platform that you feel most comfortable in, number one, you got to pick a platform. Number two, you got to start creating content. And my advice is creating content around the problems and challenges that your market face. So AKA, it'd be worthwhile to do a big, brainstorm on all the problems and challenges that your market face, because bada bing, bada boom, there's a whole bunch of content. And if you're stuck in terms of thinking like, well, what kind of problems and challenges do my market face? Then jump on a bunch of blogs or jump in a bunch of Facebook groups that are centered around the topic that you want to help serve your audience, and look for problems. Because I guarantee you, people are going to be asking questions about like, how do I blank? Anytime somebody says, how do I, boom, that's a writer downer. Or if somebody says, I'm challenged with blank, or, you want to look for problems and challenges. So coming up with ideas is simple if you just do the research. So number one, pick a platform. Number two, create content around problems and challenges. Number three, publish consistently. This is where you got to batch produce, number one. And if you struggle with, creating consistency, then set a date on the calendar and get an accountability partner to show up with you to create that content. That's been my little trick and hack, so to speak, that has helped me produce content on a more consistent basis. And then number four is engage with your people. Now, this is a process that you're going to want to continue to do, whether your audience is, less than 100 people, whether it's in the thousands, tens of thousands, or even if it's in the hundreds of thousands or millions. The same process is true. Because if you and I want to attract an audience, we have to create content and show up consistently. Because there are definitely leverage points that are going to help you grow even faster, right? Some of those leverage points include getting on other people's podcasts or other people's YouTube channels, or doing Instagram shares, or doing Facebook Lives with other people, all of which are going to help you get exposure to a bigger and bigger audience. But you want to know the little secret? The way in which you begin to get those doors opened is by establishing a consistent messaging. A consistent message that serves your people with problems and challenges that they are facing. Because when you become known for something specific, it becomes so much easier to refer you to others, and you become attractive to so many more people who are looking to serve their audience who might be challenged with the specific problem that you help solve. So, my friends, when it comes to growing your audience, there's 100% ways to grow it really, really fast. But at the bedrock of it, the foundation of it, is becoming known for something specific. And so my recommendation is, number one, pick a platform. Don't try to be on all the platforms all at once. Initially, just pick one. Just focus on getting consistent on one. Number two is that you've got to publish content. And my recommendation is to publish content around problems and challenges that your audience are already facing. And if you're struggling to figure that out, go to blogs, go to Facebook groups, look for problems that people are having, look for questions that they're asking, and just write them down. Take notes of them, right? Number three is you got to publish consistently. And my recommendation for that is put a date on the calendar where you're going to batch produce the content. And if you struggle with batch producing, then get an accountability partner. It can be anybody, family, friend, colleague, somebody who's going to show up with you on that day. That's been my hack. That's been my secret. Because if left to my own devices, I get distracted and pulled in a million and one directions. But if I've got a day where I'm producing content and somebody else is there with me, magically, I am far more consistent. And fourth step is you got to engage. Show interest in your people, and they will show interest in you. So, number one, pick a platform. Number two, create content. Number three, publish consistently. And number four, engage. You do these things, and what will magically happen is not only will you begin growing your audience, but you will also begin becoming attractive for other people who want to share you and what you're sharing to their audience, because you're solving a pressing problem that their audience is facing. So what I want you to realize is you don't need an audience of tens of thousands or thousands to be able to successfully launch a membership. Just a few hundred people is all you need. And we've seen examples of that with Anna Saucier, with Courtney Lynn, with Faye Cornhill, with Cheryl Kuchek, all of which have launched successful membership sites with just teeny tiny audiences. You can do the same as well. And if you have questions about, how do I position myself? How do I know if my market is going to be a good fit for a membership before I start going down this path? If you want answers to that, I highly recommend you go check out membershipidea.com. It's a resource that we've put together where I teach. It's a mini workshop where I teach exactly how to nail your messaging so that it instantly attracts your audience in a way where they are already in love with you and they want to learn from you. The words we use are important. So learning how to craft that message is really the backbone behind all the content that we put out, all the offers that we put out. And it's really important that you nail that messaging. So we've put together a resource. Go check it out at membershipidea.com. All right, my friends, you're awesome. Thank you so much for showing up today. I appreciate you, and all the best as you continue to build your audience, grow your membership, and serve a whole lot of people. All right, take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.